AndyTalaga again. We're continue our tier list. Appreciate him being here. So I have reorganized this a little bit. So what I'm gonna try to do here. Oh, I need to share my screen here. Let me share my screen. So yeah, so we're gonna try to go do this. I put down some of the numbers we had here. So we're gonna try to go over kind of the five rough or so main deck types from the dark side perspective, and then kind of versus how they match up against the light side perspective. And we did talk a lot about these. I think the one thing we didn't talk about, like, is ROPS versus kind of hidden base X-Wings, which is another major type. Yes, there's multiple ways to play hidden base, but I think in the PDS2 era, probably, X-Wings like Johnny Chu roughly is kind of the best way to go. Um, you agree, Andy, or any thoughts there?
Yeah, there's pretty just standardized list of what you're playing. Um, for this, to be honest, I don't love the planet choices.
I mean, I agree. These could use some work here. I mean, I would probably put Coruscant here, light side Coruscant.
Yeah, just because like if Rops, if you're playing against Rops, you have a drain of Kessel for two, maybe one if they set up Decree, and like
Correct.
Rops doesn't care about a force drain of one.
Correct.
Um,
Yeah, and yeah. I mean, and when I talked to Johnny Chu, he kind of admitted that Haven he wasn't super necessary. So you could probably get rid of Haven. You could probably get rid of Sullust. A lot of these decks they like Kashyyyk, is a common one. But so I think you could improve the planets a little bit. But I agree, kind of Coruscant,
yeah,
Kifex, Sullust, Kessel. You probably want these three. You're right, just for ROP, so that you can be here and drain for at least one, if not two.
right.
I agree
And
with
then
you
you
there.
keep,
Yeah.
you keep Endor just so that you can drop and move easier. And then your fifth system is a toss up, whatever it is that you want. Could be core lag, it's a force strain -1. Could be Yavin if you decided you wanted to put in some Red Squadron X Wings from the OTSD. They deploy a little bit cheaper there. Could be Sullust or Mon Calamari. They either give plus deploy to dark side or a force strain minus if they don't have a star destroyer, which they don't know. Dark side doesn't always have a star destroyer. They might just be playing like bounty hunter ships, and then
Right.
like you can move. I can't remember which direction. Like Endor, Mon Calamari, Sullust. There's some like movement thing there where like you can move for free
Right.
between. It must be from Endor to Sullust or something like that, right? So like you could go like rendezvous point to Endor, Endor to Sullust, and like start moving your chain of X Wings out easier. Sure. And there's a variety of other systems that you could throw in that are worthwhile. Off the top of my head, um, Bespin, because I'm surprised that this deck does not play. It's a hit. And Bespin, the docking bay from Bespin is the best dark side like battleground site in Death Star 2. So because you can't be lost in the wilderness there. So like if you play Bespin, you can just park an X-wing and then it's a hit and cancel the drain there constantly. And you can do the same with Endor to Endor docking bay. You can play Tatooine to do that if you wanted to beat up on Court or something like that. Hoth for the same thing for if you're matching up on like some type of ISB Walker Garrison deck. Anyway, like there's a reason for basically any system you want. I will say hidden base X Wings would be like almost unbeatable.
Almost unbeatable.
It is, let me look real quick. Um, but basically, what it is it lets you in your control phase land an X you get the big one and the space slug set belly, and then you can land a starfighter there in your control phase to satisfy battle order, and then you can take back off. It is This is no cave, I believe. Um, I could be wrong. Anyway, it's not programmed, so like if you're thinking about playing in real life, then yeah, it's a used 5. Relocate 1 starfighter from big one to the related site or vice versa for free. So you can do that at any time. So in the activate phase or control phase, you can land. Your X-Wing can force strain there. It's power 0, but it can force strain. It satisfies battle order. And then during your move phase, you can just pay 1 force and take off back to big one. And then you don't get beat down. They don't drop somebody down there. And even if they do drop somebody down to the mouth, you're just there for like half a turn. Anyway, neither here nor there. That's a huge card that's missing out of Hidden Base X-Wings, because then you don't have to play junk like Forest, right? Which is impossible to find. I don't like Forest in this deck. I'm not really concerned about flipping Hunt down. I think you just put Obi or Luke at just a different site and flip them back. And you just both, like, the way you beat Hunt down for most decks, you take a ping, but they lose a force. And like, sure, you're both losing force, but you're both losing force. You're actually doing damage to your opponent for free. So like, I don't love Forest. It's impossible to find in this deck. And yeah. So anyway, I digress.
I told Johnny. I personally, I like television. You know, I think one television or two would be helpful. I mean, I know it's hard to fit this, but that helps you get forced. I mean, it helps you for the super home one
I think
decks, right? You know, go ahead.
I think what it actually helps you with is finding your systems. Because here's the thing, and this is why I didn't like the initial system package that was brought up when it was shown, was like, Hidden Base is not trying to force choke their opponent. The Hidden Base deck is going to give away a ton of force icons. It doesn't really care. That's not its strategy. It's not trying to force choke. So like, the game's going to be, dark side's going to be activating 21 force, light side's going to be activating 19. Like, it's just how the game's going to go. So, and like, you don't need to force choke, so why do you care? But then the problem is, if you're activating 17 or 18 force on turn 3, you could just, you have 1 system left in your deck that you need to be able to flip, and it's just always in your force pile, and you don't want to draw a hand of 30 cards just to find your 1 system. That's why I like tunnel vision in this type of a deck, because it's very easy to but yeah, otherwise, I mean, this is a fairly standard deck. Mine's a little bit different in what I run, but you know, it's close enough. You basically drop and drain with X-Wings, and then order to engage. I'm surprised this deck doesn't have a hyper escape.
Well,
But
yeah. I know you had your video with Board Matt, and yes, you replaced the duplicate planet with Hyperscape. Yes, that was your innovation there.
right,
And I agree, it's a good card as long as they don't have,
I
won't
think you just
escape
want like
us.
1, right?
Yeah, as long as they don't put this in their deck, which most don't, but Dr. Torch will. But you know, that's the only thing.
Sure.
Yeah, and
But
if
you
you're
have
worried
your
about that, you hit and
barrier.
run. Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
couple of different options so that when they do drop Executor, you just barrier it. Maybe they lose 3 to order to engage. Maybe they don't. But then what happens is um, either if it's executor with a power pivot, or if it's, they can try to come down with Boba Fett and Slave One and Dengar, you're gonna be power 27 to their 12, and they're just gonna have to like lose 5, both their ships plus 3 force or something, right? And then you just are able to spread even more, and and you're just drain. Like hidden base starts off slow, especially hidden base X-wing starts off slow, where like you might be taking some damage, right? They get search and destroy set up, which really hurts this deck. In Death Star 2, like you kind of just have to find Honor of the Jedi quick. Um, Against the certain decks that are going to search and destroy, or visage hunt down to style decks, right? And they just sit there and they're like, you know you can only lose cards out of your hand until you flip. Never lose cards off the top of your deck, because if you lose your one system and can never flip, the game's over, right? So like,
Yeah,
even if it's like, oh, I really need to keep this legendary starfighter or order to engage, just lose it, because it's better to lose some card like that than it is to lose your system and the game's over. um,
true.
you can't lose off the top of your deck, and then like you might be like losing some force and you've got like, but then there's just going to be like this turn where they go to they pass their deploy phase, they go into like battle or move, and you flip, and now they have to spend 1 to draw 1, and then it's your turn and you're on 5 systems and you drain them for 10, and then they're just like, oh. And they try to come down to probe, and you're like, barrier you, drain you for 9, battle you, lose your ship and 10 more cards, and then Darkseid's like, I have 9 cards left in my deck. Like, I just lose this game, and I can't force drain you because you cancel all my force drains between Rebel Fleet and your objective. So like, you just take no more damage for the rest of the game until they probe you. Um, obviously there's some cards you really need to worry about. Search and destroy is one of them. Security precautions is a second one. Um, and there's definitely some decks like where you might just get trapped with like one X-wing, um, and they you didn't you had spread out because you had a barrier in your hand, and they're just lucky and they're able to like drop on 3 systems on you. You can only barrier 1, and then they like kill 2 of your ships and then consolidate on a 4th system or something. Like, there's ways Darkseid has to, like, very specific ways Darkseid has to fight against hidden base X-wings. But it's a very strong deck. It's really really good. Kind of whatever flavor you want to build. I like a rapid fire in my deck, um, because what a lot of times Darkseid will try to do is they'll try to Zuckuss and Mist Hunter you and catch your red leader or an X-wing off guard, and they like drop Zuckuss in battle, and you just respond with rapid fire and let you put X-wing cannon from either your hand or reserve deck onto your ship, and then you just shoot them. Which is one of the reasons why I hate Zuckuss and Mist Hunter. I don't think it's a good card. It's the best Darkseid ship, but it's not a good card. And yeah, so there's a lot of really interesting things you can do with hidden base X-wings, but it's gonna feel slow, and then you're gonna turn the corner. Rops is a hard matchup. Um,
Yeah. So
you can
it's a hard matchup. And Johnny Chu, he acknowledged this. I agree. It's one of the hardest ones. You have a chance to do it. Sometimes, you can get lucky and they have a slow start, and maybe you can, move to Raltier. Um, right? But
but you're never
usually,
going to get a second sight.
yeah,
Like
well,
you're,
yeah,
you're you can block all their stuff on the ground, right? You have two spies, you've got two projections. You can it's a hit. You can it could be worse if you're playing. It could be worse. Not all of them play. It could be worse, but this version that you have up on the screen has one. You
yeah,
can it could be worse. You can control the heck out of Raltier. You've got a lot of organized attacks, so their +2 battle destiny should be mostly mitigated because you should be able to organize the attack on their turn and on your turn, and then activate back to another organized attack to be able to just like keep looping them unless they grab it, of course, which organized attack is probably like public enemy number one to grab for ROPS, just so that they can beat down. Dengar and punishing one is hard because it shuts off the immunity that you get, but fair enough. But you're gonna struggle. Like they're not gonna necessarily have an issue satisfying battle order, but you will. And this is also another reason why I don't really love Forest, because you're like, great, I'll drop EPP Luke to Forest. Either convert Raltiers or drop it to whatever system Kashyyyk, right? And then I'm going to put Luke there, or Luke and Obi there, and Darkseid just, even though you're immune, Darkseid can just come at you with walkers, and those lightsabers don't do anything, and they're going to outpower you. And suddenly what's going to end up happening is they're going to be power 10, right? But then they're going to draw Battle Destiny, and it's going to be 4 plus an additional 3 or 4, and now there's 17, and you're like 5 or 10. And even if you basically are drawing one of two destinies in Hidden Base X-Wings. You're either drawing a 2 or you're drawing a 5. There's not a lot of variation on what you're going to draw. Plus minus like a couple of random cards, like a Order to Engage as a 4, or, grabber or whatever. But like for the most part, you're drawing a 2 or a 5. If you draw a 2 in that situation, you have to lose 5 force. If you draw a 5 in that situation, you have to lose 2 force. And it basically just becomes a free drain of at least 2 for your opponent while you're trying to satisfy battle order, and they're just pounding you mercilessly. And the turn that you draw a 2 and you have to lose 5 cards, you have to sit there and think, should I just lose Luke? And then you lose Luke, and now you're not satisfying battle order anymore, and now they have a drain site. It's a trap. I feel like it's a trap. It's only good against specifically Hunt Down, which I don't think is a very good deck in this format. I wouldn't really play. I would. It's a trap. Thanks. This is not a card you should put into this deck, by the way. But funny puns of what I just said. But Forest is basically only good against exactly Hunt Down. And I don't think I think of the 5 or 6 best Darkseid decks, Hunt Down is clearly number 6, right? Like, because Honor of the Jedi is just so devastating to that deck. So it's like kind of a win more card, not even, against like not the best Darkseid decks, which is why I don't like Forest. But anyway, I digress. Like, ROPS is a really tough matchup for you. You can get lucky. You're going to stop everything they're doing on the ground, force damage wise, but you're going to sit there and eat Search and Destroy for the whole game. Because ROPS is clearly going to be on 3 battlegrounds, and because they occupy all their sites, right? Like, and you're not going to be able to do anything about that, and that's just 2 damage every single turn that you're getting pinged. Most of your systems aren't going to be doing anything. You're going to drain for 2 at Kessel, 2 at Coruscant, and 1 at Kifix, and like you have to hold those systems. And Darkseid can just pile their ships at one of them, right? And like you're like, okay, I guess we can fight there, but it's just going to be one of those battles where it's like your power's 36 and my power's 37. I owe you one ship. You lose a pilot. Your turn. Oh, you played another pilot and we battled. Okay, you lose a pilot and I organized attack. Oh, you grabbed it. All right, you're my turn. I'm gonna lose it, and it's just like it never gets anywhere. It's just two massive power blocks battling each other to make each other lose forfeit. Um, and then meanwhile, you're just doing 3 damage to them, but you're probably paying 6, and that's like Hidden Base X Wings puts a lot of cards on the table, like a lot. It's not a good deck if you're trying to play for differential, because you're just going to have 35 cards out on the table at some point. And so you're just like sitting there, like, I guess I pay 6. I only have 11 life force left. Use almost all of my life force every turn just to drain for 3 while they're not paying to drain. And that's basically how ROPS beats you eventually. Hidden Base X Wings is very good against something like Bring 'em Before Me, because it doesn't actually interact with Bring 'em Before Me. And I guess to a lesser extent, like Hunt Down, whether it's Hunt Down dueling or Hunt Down non-dueling, you those decks are just basically like power Vader decks, right? You put Vader's going to come down and just be a one-man wrecking crew, and then Mara Jade goes to the other site and kind of cleans up, and all you want to do is face light side mains all day long and just battle them into submission. And Hidden Base X Wings is not that deck. It's the opposite of that deck. And so, like, then suddenly Darkseid sitting there going, like, all right, I have to pay to drain because I want to put, if I don't put Battle Order into play, you're just going to run rampant on me in space. So I have to put Battle Order into play, but I'm only draining at 2 docking bays, and you're going to cancel at some point. That's where that, like, Hidden Base X Wing is going to turn the corner. They're going to flip their objective, and it's going to be like, cancel your drains. Now Darkseid's on this mission of, I have to probe your hidden base. If I don't probe your hidden base, I lose. And if it takes me 2 turns, I'm so far behind because you're going to go, because I'm not trying to stop your drain at Kessel and Coruscant and Kifix. I'm trying to find your hidden base, which is going to be like some Bobo system like Mon Calamari, right? And so I have to go there instead of going to the system I want to go to. And you're going to hit me for a drain of 8. And then I didn't find it and I move, and you hit me for a drain of 8. Then I lose my ship and I still have a fulfilled battle order. And so Hidden Base Excellence is actually really good against Hunt Down and Bring 'em Before Me. And then it's, if Darkseid's able to probe the hidden base quickly, like the turn, like where they're able to be like, all right, my turn, I activate 16, Zuckuss to one system, Boba Fett to the other system, probe. Did I hit it? If I hit it, fantastic. If I didn't hit it, move. Your turn, probe. I hit. It's not going to be Coruscant. It can't. So your other 4 systems, like, I got there, right? I did it in 1 turn cycle. Is how they have to do it. But like, if it suddenly, like, and like they have to have like the right cards. They have to get blast door controls down so that they cancel the barrier, because otherwise the ship just gets barriered. It can't move, then it can't probe, and they kill it. Even if you don't take damage because you got security precautions out, like, Hidden Base X-Wing is just wants your ship off the table. It doesn't at that point, right? And it's just like, it's tough for Darkseid mains to beat Hidden Base X-Wings. I don't know if it's, going back to the whole idea of like where it is on this sliding scale. Is it, 60 40 50 50 70 30? It's Hunt Down might Hunt Down's probably better against Hidden Base X-Wings than Bring 'em Before Me is, even though I think Hunt Down's a worse deck than Bring 'em Before Me. But Hunt Down can get onto 3 battlegrounds to satisfy Honor, because like Honor doesn't do anything against Bring 'em Before Me. It's kind of a dead card, which is also one of the strengths of Bring 'em Before Me. Is Honor's the best light side card, bar none, and Bring 'em Before Me doesn't care about Honor at all. Whereas Hunt Down like really, really cares about Honor. So you so Hunt Down is like designed intrinsically to be able to get onto 3 battleground sites or systems, battleground locations, so that you can actually keep Visage pings going. But Hidden Base X-Wings, like most other light side decks, should probably be trying to keep Visage around so that you can set up where Dark Side's just always on the 0 side, taking damage as well. And so, but that's kind of where I say like Hidden Base X-Wings is Hunt Down's better because it's got a combination of Visage and Search and Destroy going. Whereas Bring 'em Before Me probably only has Search and Destroy, so it's just slower. And it's not on as many battlegrounds. So you're not doing as much enforced training, which means that the flip on Hidden Base plus Rebel Fleet hurts you a lot more. I'd say against Bring 'em Before Me, Hidden Base is a tough matchup. 80-20, 75-25 for Hidden Base. I think you're better at Hunt Down. You're probably 60-40. It depends. That matchup really is going to depend on how quickly can you find your systems, how quickly can you get Honor set up, and can you disrupt Dark Side enough to make Honor actually effective, / keep them on the 0 side to keep Visage pings on them as well, / how fast can they find their ships and try to probe your system. So there's actually a lot going on in that matchup.
Yeah.
So, if Darkseid gets all that stuff going, then to be honest, it might even just be like a fairly easy matchup against them. They're just kind of crappy X-Wings. They're not like doing anything to you. They're just trying to drop and drain. And I don't think drop and drain strategies are particularly effective against like a Dark Side mains deck. Even Bring 'em Before Me if they have everything going for them. But if Dark Side just stumbles a little bit or Light Side's able to interfere some way, then it probably swings the other way. 60-40 Light Side. Kind of really, really matchup draw dependent. Against ROPS, I think you're like 70. ROPS is probably like 75-25 against X-Wings. They can just pound you randomly. Like out of nowhere. They can just drop like 3 guys and draw 2 Battle Destiny.
They can. So, but but if you're not using Forest, because the games I've won with Hidden Base against drops is usually because they didn't have a Forest. I had a Forest, and yes, I had an Obi-Wan or Luke, and I was able to flip drops back while I had lots of drains. Sometimes I would drop.
I would say that if ROPS is not playing Forest, they built their deck wrong.
I don't know.
Every ROPS deck plays Forest.
Sometimes they play jungle. Sometimes they want to emphasize the spaceport for that easy movement.
So if you go back to what we just talked when we talked about ROPS, there's basically 3 versions of ROPS. 2 of them are fairly similar. The spaceport deck, which is street, prefect's office, docking bay. Usually you don't play city. City's the worst one. Yeah. But you could if you really wanted to as a 5th site, but it should be forest, prefect's office, spaceport, docking bay, street. And if you're not playing the spaceport package, you're going forest, jungle, swamp, desert, docking bay as your 5. I like 5 sites. I don't I don't want to do jungle in the trooper deck. I don't care about attrition -2 because my guys are immune to attrition from trooper assault. So, and forest is just a backup version of trooper assault effectively if you're thinking about it from an attrition standpoint. It doesn't give the power bonuses, but you could drop two or three troopers at forest and just hold it and not, and like they have to have an EPP. Of course, Lights is probably gonna have an EPP, but like they're like safe from the Tuaska Milas because they get under the deployment restrictions on ROPS. So every dark side ROPS deck should, the sites that they play should start Routier, Forest, Docking Bay, and then you put in three more, whether that's Swamp, Desert, Jungle, or that's the three good, or that's the other spaceport sites. Forest is always included. So there should never be a game of ROPS where the Forest isn't on Routier.
Hmm.
And if there was, your opponent built their deck wrong.
I mean, I guess the only thing I would say to that though is that, the forest has this great text that says characters present here immune to attrition. So my lovely ATSTs are not immune to attrition, right? From the forest,
Yeah,
right?
you put
So
Janus there.
yeah, you could put Janice, you could put Vader or Saber or something like that, correct. But it's not like I prefer the jungle for my ATSTs, right? The -2 attrition can make all the difference between keeping them and not.
I agree to disagree, I guess. I'm playing Forest. There's enough character. Like you don't have to have an ATST there. You could just drop Marquand and Watts are going to be on an ATST, but you could just put a Colonel David John there, or you could put a Mara or Vader with Saber or Emperor or Janice or Simalu or Tarkin or like the number of other characters is just endless. ATST pilot. I mean, Ozzel, Veer, like there's just a truckload of characters in that deck that can just sit at the forest. They don't have to be in an ATST. Um, and if they're in an ATST, there's probably another ATST reacting in as well. And like, fine, I lose Ozzel, even though he's immune to attrition. He forfeits for 6. Lightside wasn't getting above that anyway, so fine, he's out. Keep my ATST. Move him back to a different site. Oh, you came down to the forest again? React in. Lose Watts. Play another guy. The -2 to attrition, like, even if it's not so -2 to attrition, like it's not Premier to Hoth. You're not just randomly drawing lots of miscellaneous ones because there's no tracking. They're gonna draw above a 2, right? And you're just gonna lose a guy regardless. So if you're just gonna lose guys anyway, just like you want them to come to Routier at some point and just beat the hell out of them. So like they're not going to go to there because it's 4 strain -1. They're going to go to some other site. Like you don't really care about the light side game text on jungle, to be honest. At least I don't. If I'm playing ROPS, like as dark side, I don't care what that says. I'd rather have immunity to attrition for some or all of my characters off of forest. That's just my take. Could be
Okay.
different, but I think if you don't have forest as one of your 4 or 5 Routier sites, that you built your deck wrong.
Okay. No, I get you. And if I'm playing troopers, I agree with you, Forest, or if I have a whole bunch of mains,
Forest.
I agree with you there. Okay. I
So
yeah,
anyway,
yeah. So from the perspective of hidden base though, because if you're not using forest, you're right. What are you doing search and destroy? Because like there's a video on YouTube where the guy in open and he does advocate it's a trap. I know you said you hate this card, right? It's one battle, it's one battle, it's one card, it's one turn. You satisfy battle plan and or you know search and destroy. You don't think one card, one turn, or how would you do it? Are you just saying, well, I'm not ever putting the ground, and I'm just going to pay 3, 6, 9 for battle plan and eat the search and destroys, and that's okay? Or what's your advice there?
I want every card in my deck to be working in unison. And I get it that, like, yeah, that is sort of working in unison because then I don't have to pay or do search and destroy or whatever. But, like, my deck is designed to be an X-Wing drop and drain deck that turns into a one turn beat down, kill everything, you lose 30 force. And if I've got these like miscellaneous extraneous cards that are like one offsies, I don't really I don't really want that in my deck. I want my deck as absolutely brutally efficient to executing my game plan as I can possibly be. And it's like, all right, fine, sure, against drops. Maybe if you absolutely know you're playing against drops, throw a copy of It's a Trap in there. You're going to have to go find It's a Trap. You're going to have to go find your Obi with Saber. You're going to have to spend 9 force to deploy Obi with Saber to Raltier and save 3 more force for your It's a Trap to satisfy 1 force loss off of Search and Destroy and get 1 turn of draining for 3 to 5 force because they're going to be flipped. That seems like a pretty big ask. But if that's what you want to do with your deck, go for it. I would rather, like, what does that do against hunt down dueling though? They're just going to come and duel your Obi. They don't care about the fact that you have an It's a Trap. It's just a completely dead card, or a court deck that just goes none shall pass your Obi. I finally got value out of this card that's otherwise dead. Bounce Obi. Great, you have an It's a Trap sitting in your hand that's doing nothing unless you decide you want to just sit at Great Pit of Carcoon
Well,
for a turn.
I guess, yeah. I mean, you're right. It would be expensive, especially if they have like bad feeling. Have I? You're right. If they
Which
got bad feeling,
they
you're you're
probably aren't
you're,
going
you're
to
sad.
necessarily play bad feeling have I against you. So fine, maybe it comes down for 7 force, but still, you're going to need to take 10 force and 2 cards to do this. I'd rather just, and it's not always good in like all of your mat. Like, honestly, I'd rather just play a second copy of Rebel Fleet in this deck so that I know that I can go find Rebel Fleet.
Okay.
Like, that seems like it's a better card choice decision. Like, It's a Trap might be like card number 72. It's
Okay.
maybe in consideration for the deck. And if I have like an absolutely sick read on my opponent, or I'm going to play against Brad Kipple and I know he's going to play Rops, sure, go for it. I wouldn't play 2, absolutely not. But as a 1 turn, this is how I'm going to I'm going to, once they flip route tier operations, this is my plan to either bury them because I got so far ahead early before they were able to do anything, or this is my plan to get back into this game somehow. Okay, but I wouldn't advocate doing this.
Okay. Well, what about?
Um,
All right. Well, dodge then, right? I mean, you could dodge, right? Dodge and
I
then
think it's
or
the same
engage.
card,
Yeah.
same thing.
Same thing.
I don't. That is a hidden mains card, not a hidden base excellence card. I wouldn't play dodge in this. I wouldn't play any of that stuff, to be honest. Like, it doesn't help your core competency of your deck, which is being a relatively low to the ground, no pun intended, because you're in space deck,
Yeah.
right? Which is all your X-Wings are either free because they're going down to Rendezvous Point and moving to Endor for free and then moving from there, or they just cost 2 force. And it's like, guy at Coruscant, guy at Kifix, guy at Kessel, that cost me 6 force. Barrier, hyper escape, barrier, move, hit and run my guy, wherever I need to. Oh, you left a guy there. X-Wing, 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 X-Wing. That only cost me 10 force. Battle, organized attack, good game.
Okay.
You know, that's your plan. Your plan is not clogging your hand up with dodge.
Okay.
Um, so I mean, Hidden Base X-Wings is a good deck. Don't get me wrong. Rops is a tough matchup. Hunt Down can be a tough matchup. You're probably pretty good against Bring 'em Before Me. Court is probably also harder to play against than Bring 'em Before Me. Not nearly as tough as Hunt Down, but you're gonna eat a ping probably every turn. And yeah, I mean, there's other decks, that we haven't even started to talk about, like Brangus or ISB.
Sure.
Um, ISB, depending on how they build it, there's 15 ways to build ISB. A big blue ISB deck will probably be challenging for you to play against unless you can trap them and blow them out with power 6 X-Wings one turn, and your power 48 or 54 to their 22, and they have to lose 30 force, and they lose 2 of their ships and 4 pilots. And that card you just put on there, something special for plan for them, is going to absolutely shut you down.
Yeah.
God forbid they gravity shadow you, where like you've got 3 X-Wings and they've got power 30 sitting on 2 Star Destroyers, and you're like, all right, I'm going to move. I've got 4 X-Wings here. I'm going to run away to a system because my X-Wings have hyperspeed 5, so I can escape your Star Destroyers by moving to the other side of the parsec line. And they let you move the first 3, and then they gravity shadow your last one, and that one gets stuck, and then it's their turn,
Yeah.
and the game ends.
Right.
So ISB can be difficult, but ISB could also just not really be a thing against you because it's trying to be like this ground scum deck, and you're just like, okay, whatever, flip my objective, cancel all your drains, drain you. Fine, you get to retrieve an outer rim scout every turn. Oh, you played Zuckuss and Mist Hunter, barrier him. My turn, X-Wing cannons, blow him out of the sky.
Yeah.
It's so it depends on the type of deck that ISB is playing, and I'm not entirely sure how this matchup would go against Brangus. I feel like
Well,
you
yeah. Let me grab the original Bragness. Right. There's 2 Bragnesses. There's the one that Lord Flick originally did, and there's the one that he updated. I think the one he did in 2021 is probably the better one. So, if someone repeated this deck, I think a lot of their, like, it's set for stun. Maybe it's the fact that, yeah, go ahead.
this deck is going to it's going to sit there and loop their ties and retrieve 3 force every turn. Whether you like this exact build or not, I know and Rabbit Eddie doesn't necessarily really like, and he's the master, the modern master Brangus. He doesn't like Bastion's version of the deck. He plays a few different cards, but fine, we're going to look at this one. Whether you agree with all the card choices, every Brangus deck is gonna have the 2 squadrons and Sinar Fleet system. So you're gonna be just looping those 2 cards a lot. You do open yourself up to getting beat down, but you want to, like, this deck is not trying to drain on the ground, right? It's not really affected by hidden base flipping. And one, this is an incredibly difficult deck to play. If
Yes.
you don't know what you're doing, you're just gonna lose. Like, you're gonna mess up you basically spend the first like few turns just ordering your deck in a very specific pattern and then memorizing the order of your deck. So that like hidden base X-Wings can't do anything against Trooper Sabak. They're just gonna lose 2 force every single time because it's gonna be perfect Sabak. Can they steal? No, transport vehicle or character weapon. There's one of the Sabaks can steal a starfighter. That'd be that'd be sick. Steal all their X-wings and play them against each other, right? But so you're gonna lose 2 to Trooper Sabak every single turn, and then at some point they're gonna have like 6, 6, 5, 5, 5, 6 stacked in their deck, and you're gonna be an X-wing deck and make the mistake of draining. You didn't lock S foils because you're like, I'm playing against Brangus, I don't need to lock S foils. Drain, and they're going to counter assault you, and they're going to draw 40, and you're going to be power 9, or you're going to be power 10, and you're going to lose 30 cards. That's how Brangus is probably just going to wreck you. You'll also just lose to number. Like, if you're playing against Brangus, you have to start Insight and just keep Insight out the whole game. Otherwise, you'll lose to numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, set for stun doesn't do anything. Circle doesn't do anything. Trample doesn't do anything. They can overload your X-wing if it's got a cannon on it, but that actually, I think it's on character, right? Target any
No,
weapon.
or starship. Yeah, you can overload a
Yeah,
starship.
right. So any starship that has the weapon on it's going to get overloaded, and then so like your Zuckuss, your Saber 1, they're kind of safe, for lack of a better term, on X-wing cannons because they're just overloaded. They'll alter your rebel fleet.
Yeah, I mean,
But mostly this deck isn't really doing a ton on the ground. It's going to try and fight you in space and just set up a counter assault somewhere. And they could just also be the point where like they drain you and you just counter assault them and make them lose 4 and then go get your counter assault back. And then it's like, do I drain them? I don't really want to drain them because I'm just for force and they just endlessly get counter assault because they're just looping the docking bays. So I can never drain for the rest of this game. Otherwise, I'm going to get counter assaulted. Or like, fine. Yeah, because it's not unique, right?
yeah.
No. So they can just like counter assault you. Oh, you have 2 X-Wings at that system, 11. You're 6, lose 5 force. Okay, my action in your control phase, get counter assault back. You want to try that again? No? All right, my turn. Right? So like that's Brangus. Brangus doesn't. I feel like that's really the out for Brangus is to sit there and counter assault and counter assault and counter assault. So like if you're an X-wing deck and you don't play a grabber, which a lot of X-wing decks don't play grabbers, then counter assault's really going to hurt you. If you do play grabbers, you kind of have to just set it up where like you grab the counter assault. You don't grab the put all sections on alert. You get the counter assault or the overload, right? And as you find you lose the one ship with the cannons, you grab overload. Now you've got the cannons, and you go chase their ships down and shoot them. And you grab counter assault. And then I think Brangus probably has a much harder time against you. They're relying then on Trooper Sabak to do 2 damage to you every turn, which is kind of slow, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you need to grab the correct card. And the issue is if you spread out too much, then they can kind of like divide and conquer because he's gonna get the blast door controls. He's gonna stop your barriers in the ground. If you kill off their kind of the squadron, he'll get them back, right? Via all sections or directly. So yeah, you have to be very
Yeah, they
careful.
basically have like an endless supply of Zuckuss and Mist Hunter. And it's like you have 2 cannons in your deck, 1 or 2 cannons in your deck. They're going to overload one of them for sure. If you grab it, then you have 1 cannon. Zuckuss can go to any of the other 4 systems.
Yeah.
Right. Same with Bosk and Houndstooth, right? Just have endless Bosk and Houndstooth.
Yeah.
So it's annoying to play against this deck. I'm so glad that the skill gap from somebody who can actually pilot this to like everybody else is like massive, because if this deck was actually played by a lot of people, I don't think we would ever play Death Star 2.
Yeah.
This is the most annoying deck to play against. This is another one of those decks where even if I have like a deck that I think could maybe beat Brangus, I'll just concede and just move on with my life. I don't want to waste an hour playing against Brangus.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you ever see me online and you Death Star 2 deck up, load up Brangus. You got a free concede from me.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
but
So,
anyway,
okay. So let
hidden
me.
base X Wings,
Oops, sorry. Let me.
tough.
Yeah. Let me try to fill in some of this tier list here. So, um, okay. So we talked about. Okay.
Actually, I think if we're filling into this, something that it just completely went past my mind when we were talking about ROPS versus Mind What You Have Learned, right? I was going
Right.
on and on about Mind What You Have Learned. Test to 5 is so good, right? Or
Yes.
even test to 1, test to 2, test to 3, whatever.
Yeah.
ROPS also has ability. And
It
I
does.
just completely blanked that that was a real card, because I play Bring Them Before Me, and there's like 11 characters in my deck, so I can just never play ability. But ROPS has 26 cards with ability or something like that.
Yeah.
This card eats Mind What You Have Learned alive, because it does two things. One, it forces damage through, but two, big part of Mind What You Have Learned is to do nothing against your opponent for the first 5 turns or 6 turns of the game, and then test to 5 and get a 7 on it, and then go fight them. Whereas, like, you're just gonna take damage constantly from ability, and take two and take two and take two and take two. So either you preemptively put somebody down to satisfy ability, but then that's where you just get into trouble, as Mind What You Have Learned, is you didn't stick to your game plan. And like, yeah, AAA can put damage through, and a big part of ROPS is then setting up edge loops and retrieving 10 with your objective. But the like combination of search and destroy and ability in ROPS, where they're also just draining for 1 and not having to pay because they will satisfy battle order, is like take 7 or take 8 is like actually going to beat Mind What You Have Learned. So I don't think it's as drastic of a matchup as thinking about it again as written on that spreadsheet. It's probably, it might even be favored to ROPS, but it'd be like a 55-45 or even 50-50.
Okay. So you got to make a choice. 50-50 or 45-55.
Um, I'll say 55-45. Probably still.
In favor
We'll
of
go
my way of learned
50.
or in disfavor?
We'll just go 50-50. Make it easy on me.
Okay. All right. Okay, so 50-50 for mind way of learn, and that's 5 tests. I mean, would that be any different for 3 tests, 2 tests, 1 test?
ROPS is probably favored in that
Okay.
60-40.
Okay.
ROPS doesn't care about test 1. It doesn't really care about test 2. And it really doesn't care about test 3. It really only cares about test 5.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it's probably favored in if you're not testing to 5.
Okay. So set your course folder and Brangus hidden base. So can you put a number? So you think Brangus is favored against hidden base X-wings? By what? What do you think? Best guess.
Um, I I feel like Brangus will probably. I always feel like Brangus is such a boogeyman.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I think Brangus has inevitability against every deck. I just don't think that there's decks out there that Brangus loses to. I
Well,
think
I mean,
Brangus is
I think I forgot about one thing about Brangus, right? If you just stack your X-wings, right, you have a civil disorder, right? So if you civil
yeah.
disorder and you just stack your X-wings, you know,
They counter assault you. Even if they draw some random threes or twos or something, like they're still gonna draw 9 destiny against you. Like you have to lock S foils every turn. And then Brankus is just like, okay, fine, you locked S foils, you can't move. I'm just gonna go to some other systems and start draining you.
right?
And
But
probe. And so
okay,
like
he,
and
but he can only
then
drain
you
for
don't,
two though, right? You know, he's only getting two at
but they
most.
drain you at your other systems as well. They go to your Kifix, they go to your that Kashik, they drain you at the Sullust that you played, or whatever it is, right? They're gonna get a rant. They're gonna drain you for 7, and then like they'll have probed your hidden. They'll probe your hidden base, right? And like, okay, so then you don't lock S spoils so that you can be wherever dark side is, but you stacked. All right, you've got a bunch of power 3 X-wings. I'm going to draw 9 cards, and you have 8 X-wings. Your power 24. I draw 8 destiny. My destiny is average at this point in the game because I've stacked my entire deck with reactor terminal. I know this version here does not play reactor terminal. You should probably play reactor terminal in Brangus. Um, Fine, I've stacked all my destinies, and I'm going to draw 6, 6, 5, 5, 5, 4, 3, whatever it is, right? And suddenly, like, okay, fine, I'm 57, lose 33 cards. I don't think Hidden Base X-Wings can beat a stacked counter assault. I just Brangus to me is an absolute boogeyman, and I think has 100% inevitability to win against every single deck.
Okay. So what? I should just put 100, 0, 99, 1, or what should I put for these then?
I mean, the thing is like that's against somebody who can actually play Brangus. If you don't know how to play Brangus, you will have 0% chance of winning any game.
I
So
I tend to agree. I don't know about 0%, but yes, you're gonna make mistakes.
fine,
If you can't
10%
count your
chance to win
cards,
a
yes.
game.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
like yeah, if you don't know how to play the deck, then it's 90-10 in favor of basically any light side deck. If you know what you're doing with the deck, it's 99.9% favored to dark side versus everything.
All right. Very well. 99,
So
1
it's like
across the board.
it's just one of those decks where like if you want to spend a year and play 500 games with Brangus and learn it, then you're never going to lose with Darkside. If you don't do that, then sure, there will be random games where like light side, and even if you spent 500 hours, there's just going to be some random game where light side started with 3 grabbers in their hand and they grabbed all your stuff and they did something else and they did another thing, and then like because they had like 7 cards that were perfect against you in their opening 8-card hand, they win. Got it. Check mark, whatever. But barring that, and even the other way, if you don't know what you're doing with Brangus and you can't track, or you can only track 1 card instead of 36 cards, then yeah, there's going to be some random game against Prophet or Throne Room Mains where you just blow them out and you got your loop going with Overload and you kill all their guys. Cool, happens. I just think that Brangus is just it's not healthy for the format that this deck actually exists. I'm just glad nobody knows how to play it except for like 3 people on Earth.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll say is, I did see a game where Dr. Torch lost with a version of Bragnus. Of course, it was like a Bragnus, Cloud City Sabak. So I think he was missing maybe a few meme cards because he wanted to Sabak and he wanted to. I think he likes to add Sense and Alter sometimes too. Um, so he beat me with it, but yeah. All right.
So I don't really know how to rank Brangus. If you know what you're doing, you're going to win all your games. If you don't know what you're doing, you're going to lose the vast majority of your games. And there's going to be some amount, plus minus the other way, where just everything went right with the first 11 cards that Lightside drew against you. So I can't really put a number on Brangus, unfortunately. It's just one of those decks where it's 99-1 one way or the other.
Okay. All right.
Um,
So we started we were talking kind of about ISB a little bit during our last session. We were kind of talking about Ann Redwood's deck a little bit versus Tyrion. We never kind of finished that discussion. We could go back to that deck. Otherwise, I'd love to finish out ROPS versus hidden base mains or EBO. Um,
sure.
let you pick. Yeah.
Rops versus EBO should be a deck. I guess it depends on the version of EBO, which I know we haven't really touched on here, but EBO has two versions basically. There's the version that does Ketwall and starts heading for the frigate, strike planning, pull Crix mating, Crix pulls Ketwall, and then you're just Lightside Brangus. And you're exchanging Hoth docking bays. And then you use edges to loop back into retrieving your docking bays. And then you exchange a docking bay for an edge, but you like net it +1 docking bay, and then you edge back in to retrieve the other edge. Then you get rid of one of the docking bays to get your edge back, and then you edge again, and you get all your docking bays back, and you just doing Ketwall, which is the same deck as Brangus, and you're just hiding under the shields, and then because you're going to be under 2 or 3 echo base sites, you put Ebo down, and then you're just like also got like then you do like a spaceship package with like Wedge and somebody else, and you could do Home One if you want. You could do the Falcon. You could do Red Squadron 1 with Tycho and Green Squadron 3, or the version that SWC player plays. He plays Tala 1 and Tala 2 because he can pull the pilots with Crix because they're scouts. Then he can squadron assignments to get them. They fulfill EBO at the docking bay, and then they just move up to the Hoth system. There's a bunch of different ship packages you could play in that deck, but the point is that you drain at Hoth and you choose like one other system, Coruscant, Kessel, Kifix, whatever it is, and you drain there too, and then you're draining for 7, and if your opponent's doing anything, you Ketball, and then you edge loop them. And I don't know if it's ever come through in my just absolute disdain and hatred for edge loops. They're just annoying to play against. So there's that version of Ebo. The other version is the version you pulled up that's similar, if not the same version that I play, where this deck is pretty good. And it should beat ROPS, to be honest with you. It depends on if ROPS plays Nemeth and Arnett. If they don't, then you just absolutely dominate them on the ground with Arcona in order to engage. and then you have an effective repairs to go get your order to engage back if they point man it. But you're basically an Ebo deck. You set up a drain of 5 at Kifix, but really you hold Raltier as well. You probably want to put home 1 to Raltier, and then you have Kifix out. And if they ever come to battle you, you can like hyper escape into the other system so they can never battle you. And then your Ishi Tibs let you cycle through your deck, and like you're basically always going to have a hyper escape so that they can never really fight you in space. And then you Arcona the hell out of them on the ground, and you have EPPO, or you have Obi and Luke basically just holding the ground. They have to, sure they're probably going to crack your immunity or something, but like it's going to take a little bit of time to get through both of them. And since you have 2 of each, they're always going to have their lightsabers because you have Yakshjit, who's just getting the lightsabers back for 3/4 every turn. If they ever do get like really big on you for some reason, then you just Landing Claw Lando onto a capital, either Bosk or Executor. Most Rops decks don't play Executor, but they'll play Bosk. And you have Sack. You have a lot more senses. You have 3 senses, 2 or 3 controls, 2 or 3 altars. Search and Destroy is never going to stick against you. It's dead as soon as they play it. So Search and Destroy is out. Any type of presence of the Force, any type of overseeing it personally, all gone. Done. Can't play any effects basically against them because they're just going to alter it and then Issue Tib back into the altar. Issue Tib is like the absolute best card in this deck. So you basically always have altar. You always have sense. So they can't do anything. They can't. Rops can't lateral damage you. Hashin stops that. Altar stops that. There's no real effects. They can't react with their ATSTs. You're going to sense that. They can alter. They play 1 to 3 altars. You control their altar and then sense again. So they're never reacting against you. If they, it just, the deck is designed to be tough on Rops. You projection 2 of their sites so you don't have to care about them. And then, Luke plus Obi to Raltier, you get there through Hoth because you deploy to Hoth and then docking bay over to Raltier. I mean, you can just deploy them straight to Raltier. They're going to be expensive. You use 17 force for the 2 of them to go there. But like everybody then has to be inside of an ATST. Otherwise, they're going to get hit because after like turn 3, like every card in your deck is a 5. You just 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. You have signals and Narshada wind chimes and projections and transmission terminated, and like you've pulled everything else out of your deck. So it's either a piece of sack or a 5, and you use your Ishi Tibs to like get your sack back into your hand, and you stack your deck, and you just sit there and it's like, okay, the bottom 3 cards in my deck are 5, 5, 5. Activate down to that. I'm gonna draw 5, right? And if I sense all your reacts, like any character you put down is going to get hit by a lightsaber, and I'm going to draw 5 and probably break your immunity off of that. And if you don't, and you put everybody inside of an ATST, I'm going to sense all of your reacts, and you're only going to have 1 ATST that's power 4 or power 6, right? Sure, you're going to draw Destiny. Obi forfeits for 9. He covers it. Now what do? Oh, I'm gonna balance attack to go get my other Obi and play him. play him. Yakshit gets his lightsaber back. It's just like this. You have to eat through 4 Lukes and 4 Obies, which is not an easy thing to do. They can't be trampled. Um, it it's a good deck against Rops. We'll say that. If you have to know how to track to play it against Rops, and you have to know what's worthwhile to sense and alter. You can't just willy nilly just sense, alter, sense, alter, sense, alter, because you don't have a ton of them, and there are some very key cards: search and destroy, and reacting, and then projection of a Skywalker's handle 2 other sites, and Arcona just eats them alive if they don't have. So they have to have Nemeth and they have to have Arnett to stop the react. And if they don't, man, Rops is eating 3 off of order to engage every turn. And you're blocking one of their 4 strains. So it should be good against Rops. I played it on camera against Garrett Larson 2 years ago at Worlds in New Jersey. I lost with this against his Rops. My opening hand was like pretty terrible. Between 3 Ishi Tibbs, Arcona, and a balanced attack and 2 Obi-Wans, you should be able to find 3 characters by turn 2 and set up Ebo on turn 2. And like against him, like my opening hand was like Hujik's effective repairs, Clash, Akbar, Dagobah transmission. It was like 8 blanks, 8 absolute blanks. And like I drew into like 3 more cards and they were all blanks as well. And he turn 2 flipped Rops against me. And then I spent the next I had to spend like the next 2 turns figuring out how to set up Ebo. And I couldn't get onto Raltier because when I did, he already had a barrier, but I never could find my senses, and it was just a disaster of a deck, or it was a disaster of a game for me. That I think had I set up Ebo on turn 2 and then infiltrated Raltier through the Echo Docking Bay, it probably would have gone a lot different. But neither here nor there. It should be good against Rops, and the Edge Loop one with Ketwall should also probably be pretty good against Rops too. Obviously, if they're able to stick Decree, that hurts. But if they take a drain of 5, I mean, fine, they flip. You're still going to drain them for like 4 and 2, or there's like they're taking a big drain at Kifix every turn, right? You put launching the assault down, and then home 1 sits there with Hashin and Akbar and like Wedge, and you just like drain for 5 -1. So drain for 4, drain for 4, drain for 4. It's a tough. It can be tough for Rops to beat a drain for 4 when they're not used to, because Rops commits a ton of cards to the board. Like turn 4, Rops has 18 cards left in their deck or something like that, and then they're just like, oh, it's got to take a drain of 4. That's a quarter of my life force. Do that 3 turns in a row and I'm dead. So I like Ebo against Rops, to be honest with you.
Interesting. Oh. Yeah, Matthew Fent, yeah, he had the EBO deck as well. Let's see if I can grab that one up, see what he did here. So, actually not, yeah, 2024, yeah. Let's see, let's grab his real quick. So Fent, yeah, this is what he did. So, yeah, he had a similar idea to you. Yeah, he had 3 Issue Tibbs as well. He had a back to tank. He also had 3 senses. He had 1 altar. He didn't have controls. But yeah, it's a similar package I did. You also had the Dagobah and the Dagobah's hut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Routier Freighter captains are very good against Rops, because you can go grab them with chimes. and then you can. They're just really powerful on route tier. Especially if you have them piloting that Rogue One. I know we had a Rogue One, Rogue 3 question the other day. Yeah, the last time we recorded.
Yeah.
I don't love Vigrin in this deck. I guess he's just there to be another character under the shields and sit there and help you track. Like, you're always going to retrieve one. But I don't like always having to keep, multiple cards back, because this deck still does put a lot of cards on the table, between all your sites, plus characters under the sites, plus all the effects that you put out, then all the other characters that you need to put out. Like, you're usually playing with like 13 to 17 cards left in your deck, and then you want to like activate and play stuff every turn, and like not have to sit there and keep 4 cards back so that you can figure in and then also draw a Battle Destiny. But yeah, otherwise this looks pretty similar. Menace Fades is a card that I do want to put into my Ebo deck, just because you can control the 4th marker pretty easily, and then that shuts off them. But Menace Fades doesn't really do anything against drops. But yeah, otherwise this is fairly similar to what we were talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I would say it shuts down this card. I mean, Brad Kibble runs this. I mean,
So
this
does
card's
Altar.
devastating. Yeah. And there's a couple one-off decks they might use, like Vader's lightsaber, Mara Jade's lightsaber. Not a ton of them, but
Yeah,
or Sim. So not Sim, Janice and Emperor. That's more common.
I will say Bring Him Before Me just wrecks this deck, though. It doesn't wreck the Ketwall version. Ketwall version is just a completely different animal. That's just light side Brangus. But this like particular Ishitib version, man, Bring Him Before Me just absolutely. I don't think I've ever lost with Bring Him Before Me against this deck. You just force it so that there's only ever 2 battlegrounds. One of them's the 4th marker. The other one is the Cloud City Docking Bay. And Cloud City Docking Bay gets stacked with Emperor, Janice, Sim, Marajade, Saber, and you hold a Force Lightning. We can never go there. And then the 4th marker is just Vader, Saber. You can come with me with Luke, I capture him. You can come out with Obi-Wan. Before you put his lightsaber on him, I'm going to circle him. How are you going to beat Lord Vader with Saber with this deck? You're not. And then you're going to go to space and drain me? I'm a lot faster than you, and I'm draining you for 4, at least 4 on the ground. And then I have my own system, right? Rendili. So I can just cat and mouse you in space. I don't have to ever fight you. I'm just going to move back and forth between the 2 of them, and I'm going to satisfy battle plan until eventually I decide to sit there with an executor and just get into one of these, I'm power 22, you're power 25. I'll lose a guy, you play a guy, etc. battles. This deck does not play Ice Storm. I know that that's a card that you could consider,
Yeah.
but
You should be afraid. I mean, you want the dark side to be afraid that you might have a ice storm. That'll hurt you.
in which case I will, if I get a free verify somehow, because whatever you decided to pull out Dagobah and you tried to play Dagobah's Yoda's Hut and it wasn't in there or something, right? Like I got some type of free verify and I see you have an ice storm, I'm never going to the 4th marker. I'm just going to set up over on Endor Docking Bay, and fine, you can put Luke over at Hoth Docking Bay. Great. As soon as you lose Ice Storm, I'm going to go with you 3PO and block your drain there. Now we'll both get free drains, but you're not doing anything on the ground. Whereas I've been sitting here for the last 4 turns, 5 turns, draining you, draining and draining and draining. Um, so, and Bring 'Em Before Me also plays its own sack package, right? So, like, your 3 or 5 pieces of sack are not going to be enough for me to for you to shut off Search and Destroy. Search and Destroy will hit you every single turn.
Probably, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. EBO is a little
Hunt
bit
Down,
slow. Yeah,
Hunt Down kind of does the same thing. Um, like they're gonna flip. You have to find Honor of the Jedi because you start a new secret base. Like you now are really under the gun to find it. So, you have 2 or 3 signals in your deck. You have to signal for Honor, but it could just be the case that you give them 1 force, they activate it 5, they're going to get a turn 2 Vader flip that you're never going to be able to do anything against because they're putting them at Death Star docking bay. So if you Obi or Luke, either one of them, whether they're dueling or they're not dueling, they're going to put all sections on alert them, and then they're just dead. This deck doesn't really have anything else that's going to go fight that. What are you going to put down? KFC and Boosh breaker cover? Like, that's not going to be enough to beat Hunt Down. And then, so you play Luke, they put all sections on him, kill him, and then they flip back. Then they're flipped, and even if you have Honor of the Jedi out, neither of you are taking damage, and then they're just suddenly on 3 battlegrounds because they're also then on Cloud City and, I don't know, Endor or something, right? Because every Hunt Down deck should be built to be able to get onto 3 battlegrounds and hold them, which is tough to do, but like they have to beat Honor. And then like Honor, then they're getting pinged by Visage and Search and Destroy, and then that's just kind of the end of the game.
sure. Um, okay, so I guess since we were talking about, so let's talk about percentages then. So we've talked about EBO versus other people. Okay, so
Sure.
Raps
EBO
versus.
Rops.
Go ahead.
Um, I like this matchup for EBO. It's tough, especially if they can set up and hold Decree.
Mm-hmm.
If they can, then you don't really do anything to them. So you have to essentially kick them out of space. They play like 5 ships, right? Um, so yeah, you have to beat them in space and knock them out of being able to hold Decree, which Decree is control. They have to control, right? So that's where Lando with Landing Claw comes in really, really good because then they don't control that. You just during your control phase, you unhook. They don't control it. Shuts off Decree, drain them, uh, claw back onto them. So it's still a tough matchup. I mean, Rops is good against a lot of decks, most decks, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I, I think this one's much closer to like a 50-50 matchup. Um, Obviously, Rops can just steamroll you out of nowhere, especially if you're not able to like get your barriers up and running, or they've got blast door controls and you can't stop them, and they get a jump on you somehow. But there's also just you can control route tier system, and they're not going to really do anything to you on the ground between your projections and your Boosh and TK421 and stuff like that. So uh, I'm not. I'm not like, oh, damn, I got to play Rops. this is going to be hard. It's going to be like, it's still going to be a tough game, but you're not just like, well, I should probably just concede. Like bring him before me versus mind what you've learned. So yeah, I'll say 50-50.
Okay.
Evo versus bring him before me. Honestly, I think this is all the Ishi Tib version, not the Catwall version.
Okay.
Ishi Tib version, I like bring him before me a lot on that matchup. I'm going to say easily like 80-20 bring him before me.
Okay.
The Catwall version, I don't have, to be perfectly honest, I don't have enough of a framework to know all the ins and outs of the Catwall version. Just having played against Catwall version a number of times, you have to grab their edges, and that's really hard. And they're just, you like, you're, if you're a ROP stack, you can get there, because you're going to battle into them. Your like plan is kill all of their ships. The deck doesn't do anything if they don't have any ships in space, because it's the only way they do damage. So as long as you can just kill every one of their ships, you have to. But that's where like Wedge is really hard. So then you start having to like, I have to have multiple battle destinies. So like I have to have the Emperor on this shuttle, and I also have to have like Bosk. The Catwall version's tough. It's a more resilient deck than the Ishitib version. The Ishitib version's a lot easier to play, and is also pretty good against a lot of stuff. So Catwall version versus Rops. If they can stop your edge loops, eventually they'll win, I think. Because it doesn't play as many of the like tricks or order to engage type stuff. I mean, it might have orders to engage in it, but it's not like heavily focused. It's not like I'm playing Arconas and I'm going to lock you out of the ground.
Yeah.
Catwall version, again, it's a tough match. It's a tough deck to pilot. So if you know what you're doing with the deck, you're probably okay against playing against Rops. If you don't really know the ins and outs of the Catwall version, it's going to be a tough matchup for you. So it's similar to Brangus, where it's like, I think you get inevitability against any deck or a lot of decks with Catwall if you know your matchups. Catwall, if you know your matchups, 80-20 versus Robs. If you don't know the matchup, probably the opposite.
All right.
And against Bring 'em Before Me, same thing. 80-20, 20-80. Depends on how well you know how to pilot Catwall, when to exchange your docking bays, when to edge your docking bays back.
This is
And if
yeah.
they're able to stop
It's
you.
assuming they can't grab it. If they have one grabber, which most spring performers do, except maybe a couple of trooper ones. So, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
But by that point, you might just be far behind, and then they're just set up in space. And as I mentioned, dark side space is absolute garbage. So like you can't really contest Wedge. You just lose to Wedge. Every dark side space deck loses to Wedge.
Yeah, but and I thought that was weird though. Like, why in your deck did you just use the non DS2 wedge? I didn't understand that in your deck, right? Why didn't?
Well, I don't. Other than Bigs, I don't have any red squadrons, so I have to find Bigs, and sometimes Bigs has to be your third character to set up Ebo, because you just need to get Ebo down to start actually getting your game plan on. And you can't get Biggs off of Hoth because I don't play Hoth system. I don't think it's good. but you also don't play home one docking bay because you have no way to get home one docking bay. So you sometimes Biggs is your only option. Wedge has a better destiny of 4, and he has a lot of forfeit and deploys for 1. Whereas the other one has a worse forfeit. No, he has the same forfeit, but he deploys for 1 more and has 1 less destiny. And you'd have to like really fundamentally change some of the card slots for characters. And the deck is so tight as it is. Like, what do you want to play? What red leader? You want to put Jack in there? Like after Biggs and red leader, all of the other red pilots are not good if you're not specifically. I mean, Hobby is probably the next best one, but Hobby's really only good on Hobby's ship with X-wing cannons. You're just running Hobby. Like the power +2 with Biggs is not going to happen. Biggs and Hobby aren't going to go attack the Empire. And it adds 3 to power if it's a Star Destroyer. Well, most dark side decks aren't playing Star Destroyers. Executor, okay, but it's like Zuckuss Boss Dengar, shuttles, Emperor Shuttle, probably not Vader Shuttle, but Vader Shuttle, Boba Fett and Slave One, Dreadnoughts. Those are all the cards that are getting played in space over Star Destroyers. I mean, maybe you play Chimera, but like Chimera's doesn't do anything without Thrawn, and it costs a lot, and is just not very good. I mean, Executor being immune is worthwhile to play, but it also costs 15. So it's like Hobby getting to add 3 to power versus 2 to power isn't any real bonus for most of the time. And at that point, he's not really better. Like he and Biggs aren't going to go fight on the ground, so he's not really any better than any other Red Squadron pilot. You might as well play Jack, or sure, you might as well play Biggs because of random edge corner cases where he is. But like, take any of the other Red Squadron pilots, he's basically the same thing. So you basically just get Red Leader, that wedge, or Death Star 2 wedge, and Biggs are the only good red pilots.
Yeah, I mean, you'd play Santage, right? Because you have higher destiny, right? If that's you don't care if you weren't trying to cancel destiny, but anyway, okay.
So that's why I play the other wedge. He's just
Okay.
I'm never really gonna cancel your destiny.
Okay.
Maybe I do, maybe I don't. I'd have to really like in Matthew Fent's version. To your point yesterday in our discussion, or 2 days ago in our discussion, any other pilot on Rogue 3 becomes a Rogue pilot. So you could, Raltier Freighter Captain, and now Raltier Freighter Captain becomes a Rogue pilot, and Wedge can cancel with him. If you're going to go that, but that's where I'm saying, like, you'd have to really kind of rebuild parts of this deck to just accommodate Death Star 2 Wedge. When A New Hope Wedge serves basically the same purpose. Canceling the Battle Destiny isn't as critical because you're never really getting into a point, or you really shouldn't be getting into a point in a battle where they're going to crack your immunity to attrition. Because if you're in that point, you should have barriered or hyper escaped out of there. And then figure out a better way to go attack them, or a different way to go attack them.
Okay.
Anyway, so that's my Hebo.
All right. So we have these, okay, and I guess maybe the next thing is ISB, which we started.
Yeah,
So
there's just so many variations of ISB that you can play, and they're all very different.
Okay, well,
Um,
what is the strongest version of ISP? Is the strongest version ISP space, or you think it's, ISP ground, or like, what do you think is the strongest one
I
then?
think it's ISB Scum inside Jabba's palace without a Rim Scouts.
Hmm, interesting. Do,
Um,
do you have a deck list of ISP scum somewhere?
yeah,
All right, maybe we can pause and I'll take a look. On. All right, we'll talk about ISP later. We're gonna try to fill out our list. So let's talk about kind of hidden base mains. So
yeah,
I think you've said in some previous interview that like hidden base main in your opinion is kind of like a worse version of TRM to some extent. And we
yeah,
talked a little bit earlier, and I said like my opinion is that maybe hidden base mains is, I guess its advantages has less zeros you have to worry about, so it can grab Dagobah, it can grab Yoda's hut if you wanted to. Um, I have seen a version of Dr. Torch where he will do like strike planning, and he'll use this to grab Endor, right? And so he'll have a free Endor, right? Just because he
yeah.
wants to get the two icons here, and you can also play like what is it, the
The
Clackor?
Lando.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so there's basically two. I guess there's three ways to build hidden mains, in my opinion. This is, Brian Hunter's version, which is in the sample decks. So a lot of people end up playing this version. It's pretty good. There's, again, edge loops here. There's a lot of high destinies in this deck. It has actually both of the edge loops, right? Because you do it on the Cloud City docking bay. Between Fall of a Legend and Throw Me Another Charge, you got a ton of high destinies. It's hard to battle into this deck because they just sit and hold Fallen Portal, and then they'll track it around, so they'll have a six, a five, or a six on top of their deck. And if you try to go attack them, they just Fallen Portal Vader or the Emperor or Mara Jade or whatever, and then their guys just kind of clean you up. Um, and again, I've lost to this deck playing Brigham before me at World Championships 2 years ago. Again, to Garrett Larson, I put him back to back, and he beat me both times. I mean, he's a good player, right? So like, but I had Emperor plus Janice and Sim at a site draining for two. Combined, they have 8 power, and he surprise assaulted me and drew 666. 18, lose 14 force, edge, get my surprise assault back. And you're just like, all right. If losing 18 force didn't just end the game already for me, I no longer can drain with the three of them. I can only drain with Vader at a site. And like, yeah, it was hard. That was a hard match. That was a hard game to play. If you know how to track well with this deck, you should do pretty well with it. You have inevitability of edge looping, so like Darkseid has to grab both edges and then understand that they're going to retrieve 20 force off of those, right? Because they're always going to draw a six. So they grab it. So they play the first edge, they get retrieve 5 force. They play the second edge, they retrieve 5 force. They play the third edge, they retrieve 5 force. They play the fourth edge, they retrieve 5 force. So they effectively have an 80 card deck against you. And then once all their edges are gone, like they've grinded you out with being a mains and toys deck with high destinies, and you just don't really have a lot left. So, don't get me wrong, this is a very good deck. I really like this version a lot. Um, Other versions of this deck they don't play any ground sites. It's 5 systems, and they're actually a hidden base flip deck, but it's hidden mains, so they're playing like it's going to have Falcon, Home 1, Spiral, Red Leader, Red 1, Red Squadron 1, and then it plays a couple of other ships. Like that deck probably plays Red 6 and Jack. And you start strike planning, squadron assignments, and probably insight. And insight can go get you your honor, and you will drain in space, and eventually you will flip. But otherwise, you're a hidden mains deck. So you have a couple of matching pilots, but otherwise, yeah, your EPPOBs and Jedi Luke's, Han, Leia, Twaskab, Milas, or Marco, etc. And you can go to ground and fight with High Destinies and Battle Tricks. You've got your Clashes and Fallen Portals and, sorry about the mess and barriers and all this kind of stuff. And then you also can just be in space draining and disrupting whatever they're doing on the ground. That deck does play Endor and does do strike planning. So you pull out General Lando, and then you could do great Gold Squadron 1 and play Nien Nub and get 2 Battle Destinies that way. Or you put Captain Han in with, it's a different Super Falcon, right? You put Captain Han in with Lando and Nien Nub in the Falcon, and Lando and Captain Han pilot, and Nien Nub's a passenger, and that's 3 Battle Destinies. And then you're actually immune to attrition less than 6 because Nien Nub's on there, so you have it's better than original Falcon. It goes down for 3 Force to Endor or to Rendezvous Point. And then it moves for free from Rendezvous Point to Endor. So for 3 Force, you got the Falcon out on turn 1. And then the other systems, it's just like a big activation deck because it's super force hungry. You play Aquarius and you play Chandrilla and you play Dagobah, Yoda's Hut, Endor, Kessel are probably your systems. And so you move, so you can play Gold Squadron 1 with Lando for 3 Force to Endor, and then move them to Aquarius and get +3 activation there. Now you're going to be activating 13 on turn 2 or something like that. You can play Chandrilla, and you can put a capital there because you have Spiral and probably Tantive or Redemption. The deck probably also does the Redemption back to tank thing, so you can just sit there and constantly lose Wedge or KFC or really anybody, and you just put them back onto Redemption. And you have Home 1 and maybe Independence, probably not. I think those 4, Tantive, Spiral, Home 1, Redemption is probably good enough. So you get Force activation bonus at Chandrilla as well. And then you're, activating 20 or 25 Force a turn, and you're just tearing through your deck, tunnel vision, and it's like a toolbox deck. So you have a ton of just 1x cards. And then you just go disrupt your opponent on the ground while doing your thing in space, which is why it's really force hungry, because you have to be heavy in both areas. And the third way that you play hidden mains, slightly different from Brian Hunter's version, is a force retrieval deck as well. And it's a Tatooine celebration deck. So you hidden base, you pull out Tatooine, and then you get the 2 docking bays, the Spaceport docking bay, Docking Bay 94. And you set up with Ben Kenobi and Jedi Luke, and you're just occupying 2 Tatooine battleground sites, your 2 docking bays, you're sitting behind Fallen Portals, retrieving 2 Force a turn off of Celebration, and then if anything ever really gets out of hand, your other system is Alderaan, and then you just our most desperate hour over, and then you have a ship waiting at Alderaan that can come right back to Tatooine, and so you complete an our most desperate hour in one turn and retrieve like 13 force or something like that. You have to watch out for secret plans, but you're going to be on 2 battlegrounds for coward. That's not a problem. You just need to be on. You just have to be wary about secret plans, and then you retrieve your whole lost pile and start over again. And so rather than doing like an edge loop, you're doing like an our most desperate hour every 4 turns, right? And with intermittent Tatooine celebration, retrieving force. But otherwise, it plays pretty much all like the same cards. All the battle interrupts, all of the same good characters. But like if you look at this character selection, other than Ben Kenobi, like if you just moved two Ben Kenobis into EPPOB, this is the same characters as Throne Remains. And like, which is why I say like it's the worst version of Throne Remains, because like you're doing all the same stuff that Throne Remains is trying to do: battle interrupts, fallen portals, maybe some senses and altars, a little bit of retrieval, clash of sabers, etc. Plus all the same characters. You have a little bit better activation platform, I guess, but you lose out on the ability to go first, which is not to be underestimated.
Agreed on that point. Absolutely. The tempo is extremely valuable. So you are losing it. I agree.
So that's hidden mains. Those are the 3 flavors of it. I think probably the Our Most Desperate Hour sees the least amount of play. It is pretty resilient and does have a lot of high destinies because you play probably 3 copies of Our Most Desperate Hour. So those are 6s. Jedi Lukes are 6s. You play a bunch of other just cycling 5s and stuff. So, Darkside has a hard time beating Fallen Portal. And then that deck also gets to really play Beggar, Draw Their Fire. And then because you have multiple resilient Jedis, Ben Kenobi and Luke, you can Jedi Presence and just really outpower your opponent. And like Jedi Presence is a lost interrupt, but you're just going to retrieve it back with Celebration or Our Most Desperate Hour. We're almost right away. And then, so like every turn, it feels like all of your rebels are power plus X, where X equals their power. So it's really good. But it sees probably less play because I think the other 2 are a little bit more resilient. Like Celebration's kind of fragile. Our Most Desperate Hour can really get shut down by secret plans if you don't, like sometimes you just like have to activate and do something to stop them somewhere, and then do Our Most Desperate Hour, and you don't have 9 force, right, to retrieve or something like that.
Sure.
The all space one also probably sees a little bit less play because it's you really need to be in both space and ground balanced, which is hard to do. Like you need your pilots in space, but you need your guys on the ground disrupting them. And like if they try to come to space, then you need to dedicate more stuff on space, which lets them set up on ground. Then you have to go to ground, then you have to go to space, and you're kind of just like bouncing back and forth. And it feels like rather than being really proactive, sometimes you're just being a little bit too reactive to what they're doing. It also doesn't, unlike the other 2 versions of Hidden Mains, it doesn't really have a great retrieval package outside of probably Figrindan, which is a terrible retrieval package. So, like, it can be, it puts a lot of cards on the table. It can be slow, and kind of once a card's lost, it's lost. You're going to be hard pressed to get it back. Now, any Light Side deck can just fit edge loops into it. To be honest, it might be worthwhile to do, but it's just you don't have enough card slots. It's so card intensive and card hungry that, edges might be cards 64 and 65, but you just can't find space for them. So Brian Hunter's version generally is defaulted to as like the standard hidden mains deck. It's been proven and tested in tournament play that it is pretty good, and is really hard to beat for edges. So
Yeah.
different flavors for what you want to do. I think Brian Hunter's is probably the best of them all, but I wouldn't sleep on the other two. They are also just good hidden mains decks. But yeah, I think hidden mains is honestly just a worse version of throne room mains. Just play throne room mains if you're gonna go this route.
Yeah. I would say that going back to your second version, I would just note to you that you only get the -6 if Nia Num is piloting. So if Lando's
Is
piloting, yeah.
Captain Han has to be piloting or just on the Falcon? I can't remember.
No, it had yeah. If he's on the Falcon, if Captain Han is piloting, he's not adding to
Not
the
adding.
additional
No, all right,
attrition.
and
Yeah,
that's
so
not as good.
yeah, so yeah, I mean the basic reason to do Han is because yeah, you want the extra destiny, you do Nia Num, but yeah, there's no great 3 pilot version unfortunately. So
Yeah.
you're making a
All
sacrifice
right.
there. Yeah,
Scrap that.
yeah.
But yeah, there's some Falcon like it goes down for cheap enough, and you get it
It
over to Aquarius.
does. No, it does. You're right. No, it's 3 force deployed Endor, and you can move it the same turn. I do like this combo for moving to Raltier because you can move to Raltier first turn, or you could move to Aquarius, like you mentioned, of course. Um,
Right.
very much so. I would say dose stress per hour. You're also vulnerable to things like set for stun if you have a really crafty player that has that card. Can alter get rid of Houdini effects or no? Right? Can they
Yep.
just they could? Yeah. So that's the other danger of this. And I think like you said, the issue though is like if you set up a Tatooine celebration deck, but you're facing ROPS, like you really aren't really super comfortable
You're not
staying at
doing
Tatooine.
anything.
You have to
Yeah,
like get
you
off
can't
there.
do anything. ROPS generally beats hidden mains. It's because you're not going first like you would with Throne Room, where you can get a tempo advantage, but also a resource advantage on ROPS. And like sometimes with hidden mains, like, all right, turn one, I get to go, I get to do some stuff, I can set up, I can play my extra 2-0 site, I tunnel vision for another one, I got my nudge out, blah, blah, blah. All right, your turn. You played a Routier site and you didn't put anybody there. Here's Jedi Luke and a lightsaber. He's immune to less than 7. How are you going to deal with this guy on turn? Effectively, your beginning of your turn 2, right? Or, I signaled for revolution, played a nudge, played a revolution. You have 2 force. I have 7. My turn. Play another guy. Play Tosca. You have 2 force. Good luck dealing with Tosca. Right? All right, my turn now. I'll back her up with an EPP-OP1. Good luck. Right? You can just really outpower, out tempo route tier operations with throne remains. Hidden mains cannot do that at all.
Yeah.
So you're much worse against ROPS, and then like you're also a lot worse against Bring 'em Before Me. I get Brian Hunter's deck can just sit there and edge loop you to death, as well as randomly surprise assault. But Bring 'em Before Me, 2 years ago when I played Garrett, I didn't play any Sense or Alter in my deck at all. I've since changed that. I do play Sense and Alter now. And so this deck really gets hurt by Sense or Alter. Like, fine, I'll lose 2 force to do or do not. I stopped your surprise assault. I stopped your edges, right? I grabbed your edge and then sense it. What do? I sense your fallen portal. Good job, right? So the deck is kind of soft to sense.
Yeah.
Like grab plus sense, basically. Because otherwise it just goes to their use pile with wise advice. But like, bring them before me will be able to set up all its activation before you get a chance to set up activation. And because you're going to pull out your Cloud City docking bay and your Tatooine docking bay, I don't need to pull out either of my other docking bays. We're going to fight over these two. I will draw into mine with Janice or just drawing, and then I'm going to pitch them to the backside of bring them before me. And your choice is so we're just going to fight over your two battleground sites the whole game, but you don't get Luke, and I got a circle for your Ben, right? Because you just sit there and you eventually either Tarkin or Forlom, right? Weapon Lev, steal your saber. Although, yeah, steal your saber. If you try to courage, I'd circle in battle, target courage draw. And or Forlom, blank Ben game text, then circle him. He doesn't add to the dual destiny and he loses. So you don't have Ben, you don't have Luke. What does this deck win with? Like, that's the problem with light side mains versus bring them before me that aren't throne room mains, is like, without Luke and without Obi, how do you actually beat all of the dark side mains when your best character is Leia, and Leia is like a very, very, very distant third best main. Like, she's pretty awful. And like everybody else below her is even worse. You're going to take on Lord Vader with a saber. You can't. So I think this deck is not really that good against Bring Him Before Me. I mean, it basically comes down to, do you have Fallen Portal or not? And if you have Fallen Portal, all right, you got one shot, assuming I don't have a sense. And if you don't have Fallen Portal, good luck. You have to draw one of your sixes. Well, thankfully, I'm a smart player and I play a copy of Omnibox in my deck. I'm going to shuffle your deck and I'm going to Janice back into my Omnibox. So unless you grab Omnibox with your one grabber, I'm going to Omnibox you every turn and you can't ever track. And if you have your one grabber and you use it on Omnibox, okay, fine. I'll sense all your other stuff. Like, I just won't battle you. If you battle into me, I'll lose. I'll just make sure Tarkin stays with my other characters and, just doom stack a site. What are you going to attack into me? I'm going to be power 30 with multiple battle destinies and cancel yours and shoot all your guys and stuff. So I like this. I like bring them before me against hidden mains. This is one of those matchups that I like, especially Brian Hunter's. I like Hunt Down against this deck too. There's enough battlegrounds between the docking bays that I'll be able to be at the 3 docking bays. Your Honor's not going to do anything. You've got some pretty high destinies, but any Hunt Down dueling deck worth its weight is going to have a way to either add another destiny with focused attack into tracked destinies and duel you to death, or they're going to duel during a battle with Tarkin and cancel one of your destinies, or they're going to have Omnibox to shuffle. And then this, again, just like bring them before me, if I duel your guys, what does your deck do against me? Nothing. And if I'm not dueling, maybe it's a little bit harder. I like dueling in Death Star 2 versus not dueling in Death Star 2 for Hunt Down. But I don't know. I think this is going to be a very grindy battle deck against Hunt Down. You're going to draw pretty well against it, but they're also going to draw pretty well against you, and you're just going to sit there and bash characters into each other. It's really going to come down to what is their plan for your edges. And if they have a plan for your edges, you probably lose. If they don't have a plan for your edges, then you have 20 additional force to play with and retrieve all your characters, and you'll win that. Kind of the same for Bring Them Before Me, but I still like Bring Them Before Me because they're just going to steal Luke. I mean, I guess you could always edge your Obi away to kill it, but then that's like burning an edge, and you don't retrieve anything. And you got Obi off the board, which was kind of the point. I'm sure they can just redeploy Obi again later, but okay. So yeah, I think those are the three decks we kind of talked about.
Okay.
I think it's okay against Rops. You have a lot of really high destiny, so you'll also, but they have a lot of forfeit. I don't know.
There's no sevens here in Brian Hunter's list. Yes, I mean that's the issue. They usually have six. You know, Oz is a six, except maybe the
Everybody's
ATST pilots. ATST pilots aren't a six, so you better draw a six for those one-off ones.
right. In this deck, I mean, you've got an order to engage, you got clash, you got a barrier, but that's really it. If I was going to build this with the intention of beating Rops, I would put Yoda's Gimmer stick in here. Surprise Assault's probably not going to do a whole lot because a pilot on an ATST is going to be power 6.
Yeah.
Like, so Surprise Assault's not really good. They're going to just, they're going to, basically, this deck is going to come down to like, I play a guy and we're going to 1-for-1 trade guys all day. And I'm just going to just edge and edge and edge and edge and edge and just keep retrieving Milos and Tuaska and just like play them again. Battle, draw a 6. You lose a guy, I'll lose Tuaska. Retrieve them. Play Tuaska. Battle, I'll draw a 6. You lose a guy. And we're just going to sit there and trade and then hope that eventually you turn the corner and win. You're not going to really beat them in space. Spiral's weak, right? Spiral's just there to forfeit for 7. Super Falcon's pretty good against drops. So is Home 1, but you don't have really any of the pilots to go into Home 1. It's like you have Calfal, Blount, and Milos who are going to go on there. So like you could just get blown out by lateral damage.
Yeah, true. There's no defense in this deck. It's true.
So I don't know. Like a lot of your effects aren't doing anything. Like back to tank EPP Obi-Wan costs 1 billion force. Do or do not doesn't really do anything against them. They've got a few altars, but that's really just to cancel sense on barrier or cancel, stuff like that. Basically cancel sense. Honor doesn't do anything against Rops. Menace Fades doesn't really do anything against Rops. You don't have enough stuff to really abuse order to engage. You only have one grabber. Not that you really need a grabber against Rops, but you only have one grabber. All of these like cycling 6s, they're all blank game text. They're just a 6, but every character that I'm going to play is forfeit 6 because of IAO. So it's probably a tough matchup against Rops.
Yeah.
Unless you can turn the corner of just like 1-for-1 trading and retrieving. I don't like either of the other versions against Rops. They just lose. So Brian Hunter's, I'll say probably 60-40 Rops. Rops probably beats that. Especially if they grab your edges. And you don't have a way to deal with barrier in that deck. They can just endlessly Imperial barrier you. unless they grab the barrier, but then they're just like losing to some other interrupt.
Okay.
Against Bring 'em Before Me with sack, I don't think you really honestly stand a chance. Yeah, Bring 'em Before Me is just too good.
So
Um,
25
70,
or
70 30, Bring 'em Before Me. There's a chance they can like edge loop you out and like set it up where like they gave you Luke, but they set up a drain somewhere that you can't really deal with. They shut down one of your drains somehow, and like between you losing a force every turn plus their drain, and then like every other turn they get to like retrieve 5 force, and then suddenly like you put a bunch of cards down on the table and like you have like 19 cards left and they've got 29 and they're up 10 cards on you, and then you just can't win from that position. So there's like definitely going to be games like that. 70-30 still though.
okay.
um, Maybe a little bit worse for Hunt Down, maybe like 60-40 or even 50-50. If I think 60-40 if you're dueling and you know how to duel, don't just put Vader down and initiate an epic duel. Like put Vader with Tarkin and duel during battle or stuff like that. But yeah,
Okay. Awesome. All
so I
right.
think we finished
I
drops and Bring them before me.
yeah, we got through a chunk here, so I think this is good. All right. Well, this has been good talk. Thank you very much, and we'll talk later,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.